The hits seem poised to keep on coming because now this term, the Supreme Court is going to take on another major social question that conservatives have fought in vain for many decades, and that even conservative appointments on the court, people like Sandra Day O'Connor and other people, have kind of squished on, and so our hopes have been dashed on this before. The Supreme Court is going to take up the question of racial discrimination in college admissions, better known as affirmative action. But the idea that certain students will not get into college because of their race, and other students will have an unfair advantage in getting into college because of their race. There's really, really good news on this front. The Supreme Court just heard oral arguments in 2 cases taking on affirmative action in college yesterday, and the signs are very, very promising. So the Supreme Court hears the oral arguments yesterday in these 2 cases about affirmative action in college being brought by a legal group that is challenging this on behalf of Asian students. You know, Asian students and white students are put at a disadvantage, and black students and Hispanic students get an advantage. Now, we have a conservative court. It's at least a 5-4 conservative court because Roberts is squish who will usually side with the liberals on really contentious issues. But you've still got then 5-4, you can at least kind of count on the conservative court. And then there's even better news because the newest justice, Ketanji Jackson, the justice who doesn't know what a woman is, she's had to recuse herself from these cases because one of the cases involves Harvard, and she was just recently on one of the boards at Harvard, and so it's a conflict of interest. So she's out. So the deck is even more in the stacked in the direction of the conservatives. There was an amazing poll that was done. Pew Research polled Americans and said, should race and ethnicity be a factor in admissions? 75%, 3/4 of Americans say no, absolutely not. And don't forget, the Supreme Court watches the polls. The Supreme Court reads the newspapers. So the fact that public opinion is now with the conservatives and with justice when we're talking about affirmative action, this is a really, really good sign. So the cases are Students for Fair Admissions versus Harvard and Students for Fair Admissions versus the University of North Carolina. The most telling part of the oral arguments yesterday was when Clarence Thomas, the OG, the Mac Daddy on the court, Mr. Conservative, oldest conservative member there, was grilling the lawyer for UNC about diversity. Because the libs say we need affirmative action because we need diversity, because diversity is really good for education, and so it's in the interest of the university to have diversity, by which they mean giving extra points to black students and taking points away from Asians and whites. And Clarence Thomas, black man on the court, it's very difficult to call the guy racist. He says, okay, judge, I'm following your line of argument. Now, what is okay, counsel, okay, lawyer for UNC, I'm following your line of argument. Now, what is the evidence that diversity is good for education? Here's the question.
Mr. Park, I've heard the word diversity quite a few times, and I don't have a clue what it means. It seems to mean everything for everyone. And I'd like you first, you did give some examples in your opening remarks, but I'd like you to give us a specific definition of diversity in the context of the University of North Carolina. And I'd also like you to give us a clear idea of exactly what the educational benefits of diversity at the University of North Carolina would be.
So Clarence Thomas, very good lawyer, he says, look, this word diversity is really slippery. So I need you to give me a definition of what diversity actually means, because I can't quite nail it down. And then after that, I don't want to hear about the social benefits of diversity, the political benefits of diversity. I don't want to hear about the benefits to the black students or the Asian students, or obviously it doesn't benefit the Asians very well, or anything else. I want you to tell me what educational purpose is served by diversity. Now, this should be a layup. If the UNC and Harvard have any case at all for their their unjust racial discriminatory practices in college admissions. This should have been the first answer that they figure out and memorize. It should be so easy, right? But here's the answer.
Yes, Your Honor. So first, we define diversity the way this court has in its court precedents, which means a broadly diverse set of criteria that extends to all different backgrounds and perspectives and not solely limited to race. And there's a factual finding in this record, PEDAP 113, that there are many different diversity factors that are considered as a greater factor in our admissions process than race. On the educational benefits question, Your Honor, I don't think it's actually disputed here that there are real and meaningful educational benefits that come with diversity of all kinds. SFFA's own expert, this is on JA 546, conceded and agreed enthusiastically, in fact, on the stand, that a racially diverse and a diversity of all kinds leads to, quote, a deeper and richer learning environment, leads to more creative thinking and exchange of ideas, and critically reduced bias between people of different backgrounds and not solely different racial backgrounds.
But you still haven't given me the educational benefits.
I love Clarence Thomas there, just in that really slow plotting. He's almost like the Norm Macdonald of the court, which is that he's an extremely intelligent man, but he kind of plays dumb sometimes. And Scalia did this to some degree as well. So he says, okay, it's a simple question. What's the educational benefit of diversity? And the lawyer says, well, there's actually a total consensus among all the really smart, fancy people that diversity is really, really good. And they all say that it's really, really good. And they've said for years, actually, that diversity is really, really good. And that's why diversity is really, really good for education. And Clarence Thomas there goes, maybe I'm a little slow. Maybe I'm a little thick. I don't know. But you didn't answer the question. You're telling me that other people agree with you, but you're not telling me why. You're not presenting any sort of evidence. Even the definition of diversity, he doesn't really address. He just says a lot of jargon and gobbledygook and says, well, there's all different types of diversity. I think Clarence Thomas, I hope he never retires from the court. If he does, he's got to come straight to Daily Wire so we can make a Walsh-esque movie. What is diversity? What is a woman starring Walsh? What is diversity starring Clarence Thomas? The answers are going to be completely nonsensical in both. This was really devastating, I think, to the UNC and Harvard and pro-affirmative action argument here. On their most basic question, they don't have an answer. What good is diversity in education, for education? They don't have an answer. Because the answer is obvious. Diversity in itself is not always or even often a good thing. Why? Explain to me why diversity, take the word however you want to take it, because it's hard to pin down, like Clarence Thomas says. Why is diversity a good thing? On our money, does it say, out of many, even many different things? Out of many, more. Out of many, far greater distinction and difference and individualism. No, it says e pluribus unum, out of many, one. We are not the diverse states of America. We are the United States of America. Unity is a strength. Diversity is not a strength. It's a weakness. So when you bring in people of different backgrounds or different experiences or different whatever, that can be all well and good, but it has to come with a unity. So if we're going to have a country made up of lots of different types of people, we need to all speak the same language. We have to broadly believe the same things. We have to be engaged in the same common endeavor. We have to recognize the same common good. In a university, you can bring in people of any kinds of background if you like, but this is the very point of the university. The university is supposed to bring you all together for the single-minded pursuit of truth. That's why it's a university. It's not a diversity, it's a university. It's right there in the very word. Absolutely devastating to the case. And so I think if the UNC and Harvard team can't muster better arguments than that, hard to see how affirmative action survives 2023. Really, really good news to look forward to. So we've got the Love Don't Judge challenge today. It's very spooky. It's a spooky post-Halloween Love Don't Judge challenge. The rest of the show is continuing now. You do not want to miss this. If you are not a member, click the link in the description and join us.